Russia had calculated that dispersing ammunition reserves across multiple fortified warehouses would create an impenetrable logistics network. However, between March 11th and March 14th, 2026, Ukrainian Special Operations Forces systematically eliminated 8 months of stockpiled munitions in precisely 72 hours. The scale of this coordinated strike campaign represents not just tactical success, but the complete dissolution of Russia's operational sustainability in the southern theater. According to preliminary assessments from the Institute for the Study of War, the destroyed ammunition reserves included approximately 45,000 artillery shells, 12,000 tank rounds, and an estimated 8,500 precision-guided munitions that would have sustained Russian offensive operations through the end of 2026. This was not a lucky strike. This was surgical deconstruction of Russia's ability to wage war. The images you are about to see on your screens will show you the terrifying efficiency of modern deep strike operations. What you see is the result of months of intelligence gathering, operational planning, and technological integration that transformed Ukraine's military from defensive force into precision offensive instrument. The footage shows massive secondary explosions creating mushroom clouds visible from 40 kilometers away. But that is not the most shocking detail. There are 3 main factors that enabled this catastrophic blow to Russian logistics. The first is Ukraine's newly deployed long-range strike capabilities, reaching targets previously considered safe behind Russian lines. The second is a sophisticated intelligence network that mapped every ammunition storage facility across occupied territories with meter-level precision. The third is the systematic degradation of Russian air defense systems that left these critical depots completely vulnerable. We will explain each factor in the later parts of this video. Now we must look at how this operation unfolded minute by minute. On the night of March 11th, 2026, Ukrainian forces initiated what defense analysts are now calling Operation Warehouse Zero. The first target was a massive ammunition depot located near Tokmak in Zaporizhzhia Oblast, approximately 68 kilometers behind the front line. This facility, according to leaked Russian logistics documents obtained by Ukrainian intelligence, served as the primary distribution hub for the entire Southern Operational Command. The depot contained ammunition earmarked for spring offensive operations that Russian planners had scheduled to begin in late April. Satellite imagery, confirmed by open-source intelligence analysts, shows the facility sprawling across 12 square kilometers with hardened bunkers, underground storage chambers, and defensive positions manned by approximately 200 security personnel. At 2:17 local time, fiber-optic-controlled loitering munitions penetrated the facility's air defense envelope. These weapons, recently supplied through clandestine channels that intelligence sources suggest involve modified commercial drone technology, proved completely immune to Russian electronic warfare systems that had successfully disrupted previous Ukrainian strike attempts. The technical sophistication of Ukraine's strike package demonstrates evolutionary leap in combined arms coordination. The loitering munitions employed in the Tokmak strike utilized dual-mode guidance systems combining GPS waypoint navigation for approach phase with terminal infrared homing that identified heat signatures from ammunition storage bunkers. According to technical analysis from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, these weapons carry fragmentation warheads specifically designed to penetrate reinforced concrete before detonating, maximizing destructive effect against hardened targets. The strike sequence began with suppression of air defense missions targeting Russian Pantsir S-1 systems, protecting the depot perimeter. Ukrainian forces deployed electronic warfare assets that jammed targeting radars while simultaneously launching anti-radiation missiles that homed on active air defense emissions. Within 18 minutes, the depot's defensive umbrella collapsed completely. The main strike package then proceeded unopposed, with precision-guided munitions, striking 12 separate bunker complexes in coordinated salvos designed to trigger sympathetic detonations across the entire facility. Geolocation analysis of subsequent explosion footage confirms complete destruction of the primary storage area, with blast effects extending across the full 12 square kilometer footprint. But the Tokmak strike represented only the opening move in a 72-hour campaign that systematically dismantled Russia's entire southern logistics architecture. 12 hours after the Tokmak operation, Ukrainian forces struck a secondary ammunition depot near Berdyansk, eliminating an estimated 8,000 artillery shells and associated propellant charges. 24 hours into the operation, strikes hit facilities near Melitopol and Mariupol simultaneously, demonstrating coordination that required precise intelligence, fusion, and deconfliction of strike packages across multiple target sets. By the 48-hour mark, Ukrainian forces had struck 7 major ammunition storage facilities, 3 railway logistics hubs, and 2 field ammunition supply points that had been established to support frontline units. The cumulative effect transformed isolated tactical strikes into operational catastrophe for Russian forces. According to German intelligence assessments shared with European defense ministries, the destroyed ammunition represented approximately 60% of Russia's immediately available reserves in the southern theater, forcing a fundamental recalculation of offensive capability. This brings us to the strategic implications that extend far beyond simple logistics disruption. The systematic elimination of 8 months of ammunition stocks forces Russian commanders into impossible choices. Artillery-dependent doctrine that relies on massive firepower superiority becomes unsustainable when shell availability drops below operational thresholds. Russian forces in the south have historically fired between 20,000 and 30,000 artillery rounds daily during offensive operations. The destroyed stockpiles would have sustained this fire rate for approximately 240 days under normal operational tempo. Without these reserves, Russian commanders face stark alternatives. They can attempt to maintain offensive operations with drastically reduced fire support, accepting higher casualty rates and lower success probability. They can shift to defensive posture while waiting for ammunition resupply through logistics networks already strained by Ukrainian interdiction campaigns. Or they can reallocate ammunition from other theaters, creating vulnerabilities in the north and east that Ukrainian planners will certainly exploit. Each option carries strategic costs that compound Russia's operational dilemma. The ammunition crisis also exposes deeper systemic failures in Russian logistics planning and security architecture. These depots were not randomly targeted. Ukrainian intelligence systematically mapped Russia's entire ammunition distribution network, identifying critical nodes whose elimination would create cascading effects across multiple operational commands. This level of intelligence penetration suggests either extensive human intelligence networks operating behind Russian lines or signals intelligence capabilities that Ukrainian forces have not previously demonstrated. Radio Free Europe reporting indicates that Ukrainian Special Operations Forces have established persistent reconnaissance cells in occupied territories, providing real-time intelligence on Russian logistics movements and facility operations. The successful strikes confirm not only intelligence collection capability, but also the operational security necessary to prevent Russian forces from relocating vulnerable stockpiles before Ukrainian strikes could be executed. This represents intelligence success comparable to the greatest espionage operations of the Cold War era. The geopolitical ramifications extend well beyond the immediate theater of operations. Russia's inability to protect critical logistics infrastructure fundamentally undermines its strategic positioning as credible military power. China, watching closely as it calculates its own military options in the Pacific, must reassess assumptions about modern warfare logistics and vulnerability of concentrated ammunition storage. North Korea, which has reportedly supplied Russia with substantial quantities of artillery ammunition, faces questions about whether continuing this support represents sustainable policy, given Ukrainian ability to eliminate stockpiles faster than Russian industry can replace them. Iran, coordinating with Russia on multiple fronts from Syria to the Caucasus, must reconsider whether Russian military partnership provides the strategic benefits Tehran had calculated. The ammunition depot strikes transform Russia from capable military partner into liability requiring constant resource infusion merely to sustain existing operations. European NATO members, particularly Poland and the Baltic states, observe these developments with mixture of satisfaction and recalculated threat assessment. Poland has increased its defense spending to an unprecedented 4.7% of GDP, building Europe's largest land army with over 300,000 active duty personnel and acquisition programs totaling 1,000 K2 Black Panther tanks from South Korea, plus 250 M1A2 Abrams tanks from the United States. The Ukrainian demonstration of deep strike effectiveness against hardened logistics targets validates Polish investment in long-range precision fires and integrated air defense systems. Finland and Sweden, having joined NATO in 2023 and 2024 respectively, accelerate programs to harden their own logistics infrastructure against potential Russian strikes, while studying Ukrainian tactics for application in Baltic and Arctic theaters. The lessons from Operation Warehouse Zero ripple through alliance planning processes, fundamentally reshaping NATO's approach to northern flank defense and deep strike doctrine. The economic dimension adds another layer of strategic consequence. Russia's defense industry operates at maximum sustainable capacity, producing approximately 3 million artillery shells annually, according to analysis from the International Institute for Strategic Studies. The destruction of 8 months of stockpiled ammunition eliminates roughly 2 million shells worth an estimated $1.8 billion at current Russian procurement costs. Replacing these stockpiles while simultaneously maintaining current production output for ongoing operations requires either dramatic expansion of manufacturing capacity or acceptance of depleted strategic reserves. Expanding production faces constraints from Western sanctions, limiting access to critical components, including precision machine tools, advanced electronics, and specialized alloys. Russia has attempted to circumvent sanctions through third-party procurement networks operating through Central Asian republics and Chinese intermediaries, but these channels cannot provide the volume and quality necessary for industrial-scale ammunition production. The destroyed stockpiles represent manufacturing capacity that cannot be regenerated within operationally relevant timelines, creating permanent degradation of Russian military potential. But let us look beyond the statistics and technical analysis to understand the human dimension of this catastrophic failure. Imagine you are a Russian artillery commander on the southern front, planning spring offensive operations based on promised ammunition allocations from higher headquarters. You have trained your crews, positioned your guns, coordinated with infantry and armor units for combined arms operations scheduled to begin in 6 weeks. Then, in 72 hours, the ammunition you were promised simply ceases to exist. Not delayed, not reallocated, gone, transformed into smoking craters and twisted metal. You must now inform your soldiers that the offensive is cancelled, that defensive positions must be prepared instead, that fire support for planned operations will be rationed at levels insufficient to suppress enemy positions. This is not abstract strategy. This is the lived reality of thousands of Russian soldiers whose operational plans dissolved in mushroom clouds over Tokmak and Berdyansk. The psychological impact of such systematic failure erodes confidence in leadership and logistics systems that soldiers depend on for survival. The tragedy extends to the security personnel who died defending facilities that higher command had assured them were beyond Ukrainian strike range. According to preliminary casualty assessments, approximately 180 Russian soldiers perished in the depot strikes, most during secondary explosions that continued for hours after initial attacks. These were not frontline combat troops, but logistics specialists and security forces who believed their rear area assignments carried lower risk than forward positions. Many had signed contracts specifically requesting logistics assignments to avoid direct combat exposure. Their deaths underscore the erasure of traditional safe rear areas in modern warfare, where precision strikes can reach any target within several hundred kilometers of the front line. For Russian families who lost sons, husbands, and fathers in these attacks, the official explanations about unfortunate incidents will ring hollow against the reality that Ukrainian forces systematically identified and destroyed targets that Russian command had promised were secure. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has not publicly commented on Operation Warehouse Zero, maintaining the strategic ambiguity that characterizes Ukraine's approach to deep strike campaigns. However, Ukrainian Defense Ministry statements have confirmed strikes against Russian military logistics infrastructure without providing operational details. This calibrated information approach serves multiple purposes. It allows Ukraine to claim credit for degrading Russian capabilities while avoiding disclosure of methods and intelligence sources that enabled the operations. It creates strategic uncertainty in Russian planning, as commanders cannot determine which facilities remain vulnerable to similar strikes. It also provides diplomatic space for international partners who supply Ukraine with strike capabilities but prefer to maintain plausible deniability about specific targeting decisions. The silence speaks louder than any triumphant declaration, suggesting confidence that results will demonstrate Ukrainian capability more effectively than rhetoric. In Moscow, the catastrophic ammunition losses force uncomfortable conversations within military and political leadership. According to sources cited by the Moscow Times, Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov convened emergency meetings with senior logistics commanders demanding explanations for security failures that allowed systematic targeting of facilities supposedly protected by multiple layers of defense. The meetings reportedly produced more recriminations than solutions, with air defense commanders blaming intelligence failures for not identifying Ukrainian strike preparations, while intelligence services pointed to inadequate defensive measures around critical facilities. President Vladimir Putin, facing his third year of a special military operation that was supposed to conclude in weeks, must explain to increasingly skeptical domestic audiences why Russian forces cannot protect their own ammunition supplies. The official narrative of Russian military superiority becomes harder to sustain when Ukrainian forces demonstrate ability to strike targets deep behind Russian lines with apparent impunity. Every destroyed depot provides visual evidence contradicting Kremlin propaganda about decisive battlefield advantages and imminent victory. The international response reveals the shifting geopolitical landscape as Ukraine's military capabilities mature. The United States, while not confirming involvement in providing intelligence or technology for the strikes, released satellite imagery through commercial providers showing before and after images of destroyed Russian depots. This selective intelligence disclosure serves American strategic interests by demonstrating Russian vulnerability while avoiding direct attribution that would complicate diplomatic positioning. European allies, particularly those with significant Ukrainian refugee populations and economic ties to Ukraine's reconstruction, view the successful strikes as validation of continued military assistance programs. The destroyed ammunition stockpiles represent quantifiable return on investment for Western military aid, translating billions of dollars in supplied equipment into measurable degradation of Russian military capacity. This concrete demonstration of effectiveness strengthens arguments within Western capitals for sustained support despite war fatigue and competing budgetary priorities. So what happens now? The coming weeks will determine whether Ukraine can exploit the operational window created by Russian ammunition shortages before Moscow manages to reconstitute disrupted logistics networks. Ukrainian forces may accelerate planned offensive operations, targeting sectors where Russian fire support has been most degraded by ammunition losses. Russian commanders will likely attempt to reallocate stockpiles from other theaters, creating vulnerabilities that Ukrainian intelligence will immediately identify and potentially exploit through additional strike campaigns. The strategic competition enters a new phase where logistics sustainability becomes as critical as frontline combat power, and Ukrainian deep strike capabilities fundamentally reshape the operational landscape. But the truly chilling detail is not just what Ukraine destroyed, but what this operation demonstrates about the future of warfare. If concentrated logistics nodes become untenable due to precision strike vulnerability, military forces must either accept dramatic inefficiency through dispersion or develop defensive capabilities that can protect high-value targets against increasingly sophisticated attacks. Russia clearly lacks these defensive capabilities, as demonstrated by the systematic destruction of supposedly secure facilities. China, watching Ukrainian operations closely, must question whether its own massive ammunition stockpiles concentrated in vulnerable facilities face similar risks in any future Pacific conflict. The ammunition depot strikes may represent preview of how future wars will be decided, not through climactic battles, but through systematic destruction of the logistics infrastructure that enables sustained operations. Only time will tell whether Russia can adapt to this new reality, or whether Ukrainian strikes have initiated irreversible logistics collapse that dooms Russian offensive capability. The next phase of this conflict will be written in artillery shell counts and ammunition train manifests as much as in frontline territorial changes. We are witnessing transformation in modern warfare, where the ability to strike deep exceeds the ability to defend critical infrastructure, fundamentally altering strategic calculations across multiple theaters and conflicts. The 72 hours that eliminated 8 months of Russian ammunition may be remembered as the moment when Ukraine's military evolution reached maturity, transforming from force struggling for survival into instrument capable of systematic operational-level destruction. The fire that consumed Russian depots in Zaporizhzhia illuminates a future where precision, intelligence, and operational planning overcome raw firepower and mass. For Russia, spring offensive dreams died in those explosions. For Ukraine, they represented validation of strategic patience and technological adaptation. The balance shifts not through dramatic breakthroughs, but through methodical dismantling of the enemy's ability to sustain war. What are your thoughts on how this catastrophic ammunition loss will affect Russian operations in the coming months? Don't forget to share your perspectives in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like our video. The strategic competition continues, and at TGN, we will keep examining every development as this transformative conflict reshapes military doctrine and geopolitical alignments for decades to come. Presented by TGN. Thank you for choosing us.